So yes, I'm coming from this very special place called Palestine. I was not born there, but I've been living there for the last 20 years. So I'm very familiar with the feeling of being oppressed. On the other side, I'm a psychiatrist, and as a psychiatrist, I have a good chance to practice oppressing others as well. For example, at the hospital where I work, I have good opportunity to decide who is in and who is out, and who is going to get injection, and who is going to be applied an ECT if needed. So I can practice this opposite, oppressing others. The concept of personal recovery found me in 2004 when the master of this practice, Ron Coleman, really enlightened me and opened a new window for me. From that time on, I am on my own journey of recovery as a psychiatrist, and this is really still a work in progress. Today, I can say that I moved from the concept of personal recovery, and you will see in my presentation why, spontaneously moved to this mending the system or recovery of the system, because I believe that only with this recovery of the system as a whole, every one of us can be less oppressing and less oppressor. So I would like you now to see the Bethlehem Psychiatric Hospital. Just before visiting the place, I know you know from the news very well where we are situated geographically. Just want to share with you, first of all, just a few features of our cultural and social characteristics in our society. So the dominant feature is that it is a conservative mindset in general, but it goes along with collectivism and solidarity. There are two major religions, Islam and Christianity, but people in general have similar mentality. They have shared history, the same language, eat the same meals, and on both sides they are evenly rich and poor. So many things in common, apart from religion that divides people in certain habits. People there have the same aspirations. The first one, the end of occupation, and this wish to finally achieve a lasting peace. And there is all over spread high importance given to establishing family, building a home, and education. We saw also from Hanan's nice example how she is keen to learn, to achieve masters. This is really something that is very characteristic for Palestinians. Maybe it is one of their way to to escape from oppression in a way, to go for personal achievement improvement. At the same time, it's a very complex and dynamic society. Especially, I can witness the changes over the last 10 or 20 years. When there are, with increased education, there is much more migration toward towns, and families are smaller, number of children is much smaller than before, mothers are getting employed, and social networking and mobile phones are really are all around and making revolutionary changes in society that is conservative. So let me just now show a few pictures of the hospital where I am, so to set the scene. So it is our, our major building, a pretty old one, and has even some historical value. Those are two people who insisted they wanted this picture to be taken to send greetings to you. They spent their many days there in the hospital. This is inside our hospital. This is acute female section where I spend most of my time. Looks like pretty close from outside and not inviting, but from inside, with the help of recovery principles, things are better than from outside. This is main entrance for acute male ward. Our brand new chronic ward for chronic male patients. Those are some of my patients in occupational therapy. This is a greenhouse that was supported by the World Health Organization project, so our patient can make some pocket money there. And the final slide about the hospital, those are students of occupational therapy in the hospital garden. So this hospital is the only psychiatric inpatient facility in Palestine where people come when they need hospital treatment and stay with us 2 to 4 weeks. and at any point of time are about 50 of them in acute treatment, the acute wards. And then our hospital is also actually home for of about 100 chronic patients there. So the hospital is the traditional psychiatric institution with a seclusion wall around, with the nurses dressed strictly in white, and the dominant approach is a medical one. However, we are practicing as much as possible some CBT-informed counseling and family counseling, and have a good occupational therapy unit. What I like especially about this hospital is reflected in these pictures. I like students. This is the only teaching hospital in relation to mental health in Palestine. So we have many branches of students all related to mental health, and especially it is important to catch them for the idea of recovery while they are still not indoctrinated and full of youth and enthusiasm. So for me it's very important to expose them to idea and practice of recovery at an early point in their careers, so that they carry this idea in the future, because I'm not so hopeful about seniors. Okay. So, since 2004, the WHO really made a major effort. There was a major project in relation to mental health, trying to incite changes in our system and to develop community mental health services. And there were numerous opportunities for people, for different workshops and trainings done on the issue of voice hearing and recovery and rehabilitation. And some of our trainers are even here in the audience. And however, our mental health workers in general are always so keen, so eager to participate. And during those workshops, they are really so full of energy, and you always have an impression, oh, this time it will really start. And then when trainers go, everything goes back to previous level of functioning, and actually practices in relation to recovery are mostly sporadic. So when I learned that I was going to give this presentation, I approached some of my colleagues, co-workers, who are at least positive or sympathizing with the idea of recovery. So I brought, and my question for them, actually I posed two questions for them. First one was that, how do you apply recovery now in your everyday work? How did it change your practice? And so I brought here on two slides some fragments of their thoughts, in the sense that we have now a screen panel of them. So they said, I'm more patient and feel less barriers between myself and patients in the ward. I can see more hope for everyone. I'm a better listener. I like to work on achievable parts of patients' dreams. I try to do the same in my own life. I can see now there is a life story behind every patient. I no longer look only at their diagnosis. Or I am much more focused now on the patient's own personal emotional needs. I have integrated recovery in the curriculum of my students. Recovery is always on their mind. Recovery gives something that drugs alone cannot give. I look much more at the patient's life and the positive aspects. Now I like to look more for the person's own solutions and choices. So when you hear this, you can get an idea that recovery principles have been well planted in Bethlehem Psychiatric Hospitals. But for me, those are just colorful fragments of a bigger grayish picture. And recovery is still far from being our favorite ideology. And the group that works with me is composed by 12 nurses, occupational therapists, social workers, and some residents in psychiatry. We are 12 out of almost 90 people who are in immediate work with patients in the hospital. And then I repeatedly, in all my presentation, I will use the word patient, not only because it is a hospital. For me, it has a cultural aspect. When we try to translate in Arabic language the word like user or client simply does not work. And the word patient in Arabic, marid, if there would be capital letters in Arabic, it would be written with big capital letter, because the patient or Marie culturally gains something like respect in itself. So it is not offending if I use the word. Okay, so after this first question, how do you apply? I asked them what is preventing us to do even more of it. Of recovery with everyone, and I believe that some of their answers you can find in your services as well. So heavy workloads and a lack of support for the idea by other team members, as well as a split between seniors and juniors. Our working atmosphere is not encouraging changes. The system is resisting. Frustration by the incompetency of decision makers, lack of coordination. There is no acknowledgement of reward for our efforts. Slow processes such as recovery are not regarded as efficient by the majority. Recovery is not part of an official agenda, it is a kind of secondary activity. Everyone looks for how to spend less energy at work. We always go for less effort. Recovery is not an ABC, what to do approach, and the medical staff likes the ABCs. We are still lacking confidence in applying recovery, we need more practice, or I'm burnt out. So, now I want to pose the same question to myself. So why, after 10 years of intense efforts of the WHO and their trials to make it a major point on our agenda in our works, why still the recovery approach is only surviving and not thriving there? So why all of our patients are not approached this way? And I tend to give my answer in this short series of 6 slides that where on the left side I posed basic assumptions of recovery, the way I found it somewhere on the ICRA website. So it is like official statements. And on the right side, I put our local circumstances and characteristics and schemas. On the right side, like opposing elements, just to show how it is really some very often basic principles of recovery are clashing with a dominant atmosphere in the culture in the society. So, as the first, open-mindedness and partnership that recovery requires. While on our side we have a lot of conservatism and hierarchy. Conservatism and hierarchy, by definition, goes with resistance to change and tolerance for social inequality. And because of that, at the hospital and in society, it sounds so familiar to people. And, it feels so natural, actually, for them to be conservative and not to change, not to move things. And by no chance I want to be negative or consider this mindset, conservative mindset, something retrograde, or because don't want this judgmental attitude, because every mindset serves certain psychosocial needs. So in our mindset, of course, maybe the need is survival in the very end. Just I want to say how it is difficult to promote open-minded ideas like recovery in such a setting, and so it's not easy to make it a popular tune in Palestine. Then, acceptance of diversity that is needed in recovery. While in our setting we have intolerance for diversity, there on our side people have to conform to certain ways in order to be respected. And they have a strong desire to belong to the group and to the society. They're happy when they fit in. And when they fit in, then the group is awarding them by respect and support in exchange for loyalty and compliance. But it is given. It is like that. So when we work from the very beginning, when we started first with principles of personal recovery, actually we saw that we had to change direction a little bit, because people, our clients, were so happy to fit back into family and society. That was part of their recovery. And what we did then, we refocused our attention and shift to recovery of the whole family system, so that the family can be more accepting of individual needs. So you see that we were kind of developing whole system recovery even before we heard about this from Paul and John. Okay, so what we have further, recovery promotes my control, my choices of my life, but we are in collectivist society. So if you insist on your individual choices, you easily can be marginalized, actually, and it can end in disaster more than individual success. And don't forget, we are talking about Palestine. We don't have their control over our lives. We live under occupation, and we are seeing our land shrinking. So even mental health workers, as well as a patient, have actually no control and scarcity of opportunities. So what recovery asks from mental health workers is to devote time, to be proactive, to reinvent things, and to listening to narratives. But there, we are terribly understaffed. We have 2 to 3 nurses per 20 patients, even in acute sections. And people work a second job in order to provide for a decent life. People don't go for holidays. They don't go attend conferences like this one. Of course, that for me, coming here is a good incentive to continue on recovery. But my colleagues, they don't have this chance. I would really like next year someone else, not me, to be here and to talk about it all. Okay, and just this tolerance for uncertainty that was mentioned today. Actually, from our perspective, we live in a condition of overwhelming uncertainty. And when you live in a condition like that, actually, your priority is achieving some basic certainty. And once you are employed as a nurse or social worker in a psychiatric hospital, you grasp this. And finally there, you have some control, some authority, some power. So why to give up with it? Why to start to share more? So people keep these disengaged practices, and easily they can say, let recovery happen in Wales, it is not our cup of tea. So finally, we came to hope, and they are going to be my concluding words. I was so happy when today I found that even people from here found the same hope. I was not able to find anything versus hope on our side, because hope is there, and it is really so corresponding with what I have heard here. So you will not find a learned helplessness there. Maybe some elements, but not like in a general atmosphere. And other part of survival kit in Palestine are these other characteristics. Stamina and solidarity and family support and faith. Radical acceptance, something that Hanan mentioned as well, is radical acceptance. I'm taking from God what it is written for me, but it is also not surrender at the same time. When we work in recovery, we base recovery on that, on family and on these characteristics. And after all these contradictions that I mentioned, I can be actually glad that some of my co-workers recognize the beauty of recovery. And I believe they recognize it because recovery has a value, an inherent value and universality that goes beyond the fact that the society is conservative or liberal or collectivist or individualist. And above all, they recognized how our patients like to be approached differently. So it works even there. Last gift from Palestine has to be something like that. It's my personal opinion. I see in recovery its liberating nature. And this is something that is so attracting us and me personally toward it. And this liberation that comes from recovery has to bring benefit for everyone, for the oppressor and for the oppressed, and on all levels, on the level of voice hearers' mind, family, society, and globally. So with this hope, I think recovery will survive there. Thank you.